Good morning. Good morning, and welcome to the Morning Report. My name is Willie Lawson. I trust that you are well this beautiful Thursday morning. Wow, this week has zipped along, hasn't it? Again, the Morning Report is production of fightbackmedia.com, 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 and fightbackmediatv.com. We are thrilled that you are watching. We are getting some, I don't know if we're getting real traction. I don't know if you call it traction, but we're getting some views. And for those of you who are watching on a regular basis, I'm really, really appreciative. A couple of stories today. One of them has to do with Chicago. We know that Mayor Lori Lightfoot is on her way out. And this past weekend, with the weekend coming up, this is important to watch because we want to see what happens the next weekend. You always want to see if this is a thing that's going to continue to go. And I kind of think it's going to. I hope not, but I kind of think it's going to, especially after you hear this story. So hang on until the end of the story, please. Now, last week, a band or bands of marauding, I know that sounds hyperbolic, marauding teens went through the city of Chicago down in a loop and just attacked people and tore stuff up and raised hell, but they did. And it was horrible. And we have one of these stories that is going to sort of be foreshadowing of what is going to take place. You remember the term foreshadowing from high school English, right? Yeah, there's more coming up. This woman who was shocked what she was told. One of the couples that was at the center of one assault and robbery from a roving mob of adolescents during the, quote, teen takeover of Chicago over the weekend spoke out about the harrowing experience, explaining that it was a random attack and they was just trying to pass through the crowd. They were just moving through the crowd. Things turned ugly when Ashley Custon, who's 20, told her boyfriend, Devontae Garrison, who's 22, that someone shoved her. And he voiced his objection. He got pissed. He was like, who did that? Well, after that, all hell broke loose, right? She explained. And they said they were going to kill us. They turned around and started fighting. I got pushed to the ground, and the whole group went to her boyfriend and started beating him up. She didn't get hurt. It was her boyfriend who took the brunt of the assault that eventually poured into the street. It just got crazy. Now, this is bad enough, but I'm going to play you right now something that is disheartening to me. It really is disheartening. The story of a good Samaritan who tried to help, and then what she was told. That is incredibly disheartening to me.
I literally went out into the street and stopped and held my hands up to a police car and asked them to stop and motioned them over to what was going on. And they just cut a path around me and just kept going.
She was eventually able to get the couple into her car. Then she drove them to the police station.
Got told by the desk sergeant that this was going to happen. It was going to keep happening because Brandon Johnson got elected. That floored me.
An ambulance then took them to the hospital, but the couple was without their phones, wallets, and shoes, which had all been stolen during the attack.
I told the couple that I was going to go home to find them some shoes so that they wouldn't be barefoot for the rest of the night.
Her name is Lenore.
Wow. She gave us shoes, took us home, took us to the hospital.
Her husband as well.
Thank you.
Just do unto others. And that's a mantra that I live by every day, is just do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Wow. Makes me sad. It makes me sad. This lady runs out in front of the cops. The cop car there. Police officers. Protect and serve. Took the pledge, the oath, the whole nine. I ain't see nothing. What? See, it isn't just the job for me at this point. It's the humanity loss. There's there are people being attacked by a large group of people, teenagers, adolescents. They're being attacked, they're being beaten, they're being robbed. And it's happening right here. It isn't happening. I'm not asking you to drive across town. It's right here. It's right outside your window. It's right here. And you've made the conscious decision to drive away. You make the conscious decision to drive away. What has happened? One of my dearest friends in the world is a retired, now retired Hillsborough County Sheriff's Officer. And what I am really impressed with this gentleman, and I always has been, and still am, is his humanity. He's a Bible believing Christian, but his humanity, how much he hurts for the community that he worked in, the things he had to see, that, when he had to, go on a call in the middle of the night and go into situations where people were just at their very worst, how much he hurt for them. And how the people who took the same or a similar oath can just drive away, not get involved. Like something happened on a New York subway, you just got off the train and waited for the next train. I don't understand. And then what the lady was told, maybe that explains it. I'm not sure that comment got back to the new mayor, the mayor-elect, or not, but I'm sure it will. The recent story on Mayor-elect Johnson is that his idea was that we shouldn't be victimized. We shouldn't be, what was the story, demonizing teens. In general, no. These people, most definitely. In general, no. Don't demonize teens in general. No, of course not. Don't demonize anybody in general. But these people here, these criminals here, yes. Some of them may not have left the house with criminal intent. They might not have. But they participated in criminal activity. And if you participate in criminal activity, then you'll be treated like a criminal. Yeah, kind of how it is. This is what you voted for. Remember, one of the things that's true, we get the kind of government that we deserve. All the time. I'm going to take a teeny tiny little break. We'll be back with more of the program right after this message. So is it okay now, because it was, during the Trump administration, it is okay to talk about the president's
yeah. We talked about mental health elderly, so let's talk about this guy's mental health.
The president's mental acuity, because there's sometimes where it seems to be lacking. Have you seen?
Sometimes. Yeah,
sometimes. Sometimes it's especially bad. I'm talking about sometimes it's like really bad. Like, have you seen the picture?
I was told not to take any questions.
I was told not to take any questions. They're going to be mad at me.
They're going to be mad at me.
Mr.
President, are you the president or were you five?
You see, what I want, the next question is, Excuse me,
I was
Mr.
told
President.
I was told to call on what you call it
Yes.
for NBC. Who's telling you to call on?
That's the question that we ought to be asking. Who's telling you this?
I mean, I don't understand why nobody won't ask that question.
Is Jen
Mr.
Psaki
Question,
actually the president?
who's telling you to call on these people in the media?
Is Jen Psaki actually the president?
Probably so.
All right, welcome back. You know, a lot of people, especially on the left, want to characterize everything that happens in the world, that's ever happened in the world, which is kind of amazing, ever happened in the world, as racist. And they want to convince people that it is the binary black v white kind of racism. The Mississippi burning, everything is the Mississippi burning kind of racism. That these people, these European, didn't like the Africans strictly because of the color of their skin. It is an oversimplification, but at the very least is an oversimplification. But it's an obfuscation. Obfuscation? That word was in my brain. I don't know if it came out of my mouth. Of the reality and the truth of what's actually going on. What's actually going on is not just something as simple as skin color, like someone would have you believe, because it's worse than that. As a matter of fact, it has very little to do with skin color. It has to do with wealth. It has to do with rich and poor. That's what it has to do with. You know, there's an African official who was warned in a paper, people like Bill Gates and George Soros, two of the richest people on the planet, two of the most wealthy people on the planet, and they have a lot of following, and they only have a lot of following because they're super wealthy. They are incredibly, outrageously wealthy. Don't ever forget that. Don't ever forget that. That both of these people, Bill Gates and George Soros, are incredibly wealthy. You know, Chris Rock, by the way, I hope Chris Rock gets better, said something that a few years ago that I thought was really smart. That Shaq, or Shaquille O'Neal, is rich. The person who signs Shaq's check is wealthy. Rich, you can lose at a bad night in Vegas. Wealthy is almost impossible to lose. Almost impossible to lose. Gates and Soros are fabulously, outrageously wealthy. This African official has warned Bill Gates and George Soros to stop using their continent, the continent of Africa. I know, please tell your kids that Africa isn't a country, it's a continent. And it's a continent that's bigger than South America. Stop using their continent as a climate guinea pig. A Nigerian climate scientist warned so-called climate activist Bill Gates and George Soros to stop using Africa as a climate laboratory to test their radical theories. Dr. Okereke, I had to find out how to pronounce that name. His first name, I'm like, yeah, we'll call him Chuck. And if he was an American, we'd just call him Chuck. Okereke, Dr. Okereke pointed fingers at Gates and Soros that his continent is not your giant climate laboratory. In a New York Times guest essay, according to his essay, geoengineering is supposed to redirect climate damage from the sun's rays. Instead, leftist billionaires are meddling in the country's environmental efforts. Now, people in Africa, which is just another continent, with countries and governments and universities, and they've been around for thousands of years. They're fine. They're not totally dependent on us here in the United States. Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. So we see these commercials on television, of the African children with the distended bellies, and eating what they're eating the grain with their fingers, and we get this picture that we're supposed to get, that all these people in Africa are everybody's living in a hut. Everybody's living in a hut, farming dirt. No, there are scientists and, again, universities and industry, and yes, Africa is the continent of Africa is vibrant in a lot of areas. Yes, there are areas that are walled off because they want to keep their natural habitats in a lot of areas, kind of like here. Are there areas walled off by government? Yes. Are there preserves? Yes. Are there national parks? Think of these preserves as national parks, like Yosemite, right? We have state parks, we have county parks, we have city parks, these areas that you can't go into and you can't develop, just like in Africa. Things are the same, just like on the continent of Africa, just like in Nigeria, just like in Kenya, just like in South Africa, just like in all these countries. Some countries are rich, some countries are not as rich. So Dr. Okereke writes, as a climate expert, I consider these environmental manipulations techniques extremely risky. As an African climate expert, I strongly object to the idea that Africa should be turned into a testing ground for their use, Okereke writes. Even if solar geoengineering can help deflect heat and improve weather conditions on the ground, a prospect that it is unproven on a relevant scale. It is not a long-term solution to climate change. Instead, it sends a message to the world that we can carry on over-consuming and polluting because we will be able to engineer our way out of the problem. He claimed that Soros and Gates are creating more damage to an already poor nation by reflecting sunlight away from the earth by injecting aerosols that millions, perhaps billions of people's livelihoods could be undermined. Okereke urged Africa to stop allowing extreme climate activists to stop letting them experiment on the country, adding that technology funded by Soros and Gates is potentially dangerous. Now, this is not the first time that these progressive billionaires have attempted to push their radical so-called climate agenda on the world. Soros recently called for further investment into potentially altering the climate of the Arctic. He joined Sir David King's efforts in recreating the albedo effect while creating white clouds high above the earth. Now, I have not been a person who thought that these planes who are leaving I've not been a chemtrails person. But when we start talking about injecting aerosols into the climate, that's exactly what we're talking about. That's exactly what we're talking about, isn't it? There isn't any other way to get them up there, right? No other way to get the aerosols up in the clouds to deflect heat or to cause rain, or there's no other way to do it. You got to get in the airplane and you got to release them from the airplane or the rocket or whatever. But the airplane is probably what you're using, right? I've not gotten behind it. They're spraying dumb down on us. Maybe they are. My name is Willie Lawson. This is the Morning Report. Morning Report is a production of fightbackmedia.com, 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 and fightbackmediatv.com. Until we see you again, go out there and learn something, love somebody, and for goodness sakes, y'all take care of yourself. We'll see you when we see you. Bye-bye now.